In the heart of the state-of-the-art, at the dawn of the next stage in entertainment, you found No Proscenium.
You have indeed found No Proscenium, the voice of everything immersive. I'm your host, Noah Nelson, and welcome to episode 393. This week, Erin Reilly, founding director of the University of Texas at Austin's Texas Immersive Institute at the Moody College of Communication, joins us on the show to talk about the program there and how the next generation of immersive creators is using emerging technology to create deeply human stories. Before all that, one last reminder that the next stage Immersive Summit is coming up June 2nd through 4th here in Los Angeles. Indeed, Erin's going to be there. She's one of our badge holders. We've got just a handful of those badges, not badge holders, a handful of badges left for the event that will see over 200 of the most dynamic creators and producers in the entire immersive ecosystem connect over that weekend and explore what the future of immersive art and entertainment looks like. This is your final boarding call. All passengers to the next stage. And we wanted to thank our sponsors for this year's event. None of this would be possible without our presenting sponsor, the Herberger Institute for Design and the Arts at Arizona State University, who have hooked us up with the ASU California Center, which is our venue this year. I'd like to thank our two pillar sponsors. Meow Wolf is sponsoring the next generation of creators and audiences pillar, and C Tickets is sponsoring the Making an Impact pillar. Our badge sponsor is Moody. Moody is an online network to find, track, and review escape rooms and other immersive social outings. You can find them at morty.app on the web or in the iTunes store, not the iTunes store, in the iOS store, in the App Store. Apple's got so many stores. Find them on the App Store on iOS. Also, would like to thank our in-kind sponsors, our coffee sponsor, Yes Please, and our friends at Black Axe Media who are helping us video the event. Our hotel partner is the Ace Hotel, and I want to thank our fiscal sponsor, Producer Hub. The Immersive Experience Institute is powered by the Producer Hub, and that is how we're able to take tax-deductible donations in order to create the next stage. All of them have come together to make this happen. You know who else comes together to make things happen? Our incredible Patreon backers who keep this show and yours truly alive and kicking and able to pull off stunts like the next stage along my co-conspirators Eric Vossmeyer and Catherine Yu. In fact, the latest backer to join us is Jeremy Gutman, who brings us up to 432 backers and keeps us over the oh-so-critical $3,000 a month mark, which is where we need to stay. We need to go beyond that. Remember, as little as $2 a month makes a difference to us, and hitting up patreon.com/NoProscenium not only powers the podcast and websites for No Pro and Everything Immersive, it also gets you into our member-only Discord. In fact, we started scheduling backer-only and professional hangouts in the Discord, weaving together our community a little tighter over coffee. Something I'm getting myself to wake up early for these days. Only once a week, though. I'm not going to wake up that early all the time. If you're already a backer, I don't plan this. If you're already a backer, don't forget to link your Patreon account to the Discord and drop a review on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice and share the articles you find useful on your social media platform of choice. It helps immensely. We are always No Proscenium, except on Insta, where we are no_proscenium. Don't ask. As always, big thanks to our sustaining backers, Samuel Mustry, Chris Woolman, Samantha Davison, Eric Shamlin, Elaine, Daryl, John Boulette, Jay Bushman, Jerome Joseph Genties, Tom Leonetti McGuire, Kurt Collins, Win Thorne, Ryan, David Bassick, Richard Ayers, Lonnie Hands-On, Leclere LeCool, the Ministry of Peculiarities, and Jan Budman. And we're always on the lookout for community partners who are up for working out special deals for our backers. Hit me up at noah@noproscenium.com for details. Backers, look to the Patreon soon. Boston Bar Bloodsuckers at the Hollywood Fringe. There's a code coming your way. Oh, yeah, it definitely is. And on that note, let's get into this week's show. Joining us on the show this week is Erin Reilly, founding director of the University of Texas at Austin's Texas Immersive Institute at the Moody College of Communication. TXI's mission is to provide access to emerging technology and research to design experiences for artists, scientists, and humanists who use storytelling to share solutions to big problems that are responsive, responsible, and remarkable. And she's here to talk to us about the program and what fun design puzzles that her staff and students are tracking these days. Erin, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, Noah. Super excited to join you.
We haven't had a chance to sit down and talk, I think, since you were at USC years ago. So this is the longest conversation we've gotten a chance to have that wasn't just email in some years. So looking forward to this. If people can't tell, I pulled the mission statement off the website, and that's what I just read up to the she's here to talk to us point. But how about you give us the lowdown on what's going on over there?
Sure. So yes, love the mission statement. But just in a nutshell, what I would say Texas Immersive is a community. It's a really eclectic, interdisciplinary community of hustlers, hackers, designers. But overall, we're trying to be experienced designers. I'm trying to help this next generation really understand that the future is about experience, and that to really be excel and think about novel and new ways of designing experiences, you need to first start with audience. Really understand, what the audience's intention is, what their expectation and value is, what type of interactions do you want to offer the audience, and what would they want, all the way to interacting with space, and then how audience then interact with storytelling. So at the heart of us, while we demo and play with emerging technologies, we're really looking at it from an audience and storytelling perspective. What types of worlds do we need to build? I mean, I was at USC, so cannot not be influenced by Henry Jenkins, who I worked with for a decade, and Alex McDowell, who was there, who really built the whole idea of world building. And so I've taken that on in my own teaching and research as to what are those ways we imagine, envision a world, all the way to populating a world. And then once we have that world, what are the different types of narrative architectures that really foster a sense of presence, a sense of embodiment, a sense of engagement?
Let's hook in there for a second, there's something I want to roll back to as well. But you mentioned building a world and populating a world, and one of the things we're always talking about here is casting the audience. Is that something when it comes to populating the world that is part of the approach that y'all are having out there? Who is the audience in these stories?
Yeah, really good question. The way I think about audience is not only the characters you're designing, and when I dive into populating a world, I first start with just helping them understand what is character, right? Who is character? From a narrative perspective, but also then thinking about audience as character. So there are different roles that an audience can take, from a visitor to a spectator, all the way to being the hero of that immersive experience. And each of those have nuances in regards to the type of interactions and engagements you want to foster in that immersive experience. So students learn those different techniques and design as they're designing out and building their content Bibles. And they spend an entire semester in teams really designing these content Bibles, and then one of them is chosen to go into production. Because what I found that was lacking in a lot of these programs is they would learn these techniques as to be an experienced designer. They'd be able to put a great deck together. Can't tell you how many decks I've made in my life. but then could it be realized, right? Can
Right.
they understand how to operationalize it? So from the very beginning, I say we're going to visualize, we're going to design, and we're going to learn to operationalize these immersive experiences. So their capstone course is to spend 14 weeks going into production and operationalizing it. And a lot of
Mhm.
them are not from worlds that are used to production. So they have to learn about what it means to be in production.
Which for someone who hasn't been in production can be a shock, or someone who hasn't been in a while can be a real shock because it's a different beast. You know,
It is.
you get back the conditions on the ground, and it's like, hey, remember when we're thinking about is going to be like this? It ain't going to be like that.
It's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, I don't know what that's about at all. I'm not speaking from recent experiences. No, not me.
Yeah.
Um,
How to really stay on a timeline and how to learn to like cut something if it's not working. And when
oh
do you,
yeah,
you
that's
know, that's hard for students that are like, this is my baby. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to have to cut it.
that's always, I gotta say, like, as a producer, whenever I was a director directing theater, that's actually my fun. Like, when it's like, what can we lose? Like, what's gonna make this like one of my professors back in the day, he just gave me this one note. Like, we did one act, sorry, everybody, in the Noah moment. We were doing the one act plays at SF State, and it was a collaboration between the writing department and the theater department. So they'd get playwrights from the writing department, they'd get to come over, they'd get a director, yada yada. And we had one professor who was in both, and we got through the process of the show, and he was there to give notes. And like, I had finally gotten to a place where I understood that notes were a good thing. Like, when I started, when I was like in high school, like, I didn't know how to accept notes or take notes. And then I got to the point where I was like hungry for them, because it was always just meant a puzzle I could work on. And they
Yeah.
came through, and often when someone wasn't giving notes, I was like, oh, it must be really bad because they got nothing to say about this, right? No, there's nothing that they would want to improve, right?
Right.
Which means that yeah, if you haven't inspired someone to try and make your thing better, then you're not engaging them, is sort of like the way I experienced life as a creator. And uh, Roy came through and didn't have much, but he just said, like, just let the air out. You got it all there. You just need to let the air out. And that idea of like, it was breathing too much. We just got to like let it filter in to be nice and compact and just go, go, go. And of course, sometimes you gotta put the air in because it's going too fast. But that little thing where, what can you shave out? How can you just take away the barrier for the audience is a fun
Yeah.
moment.
I love what you said, Noah, about like if you're poking at it or asking questions and you like it, and the students have learned that if Erin is saying yes and adding and riffing to it, it means she likes your project and there's something there, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's true. Like if it gets you curious and excited, then you're going to continue to push and add those notes.
Do you make them do improvisational theater as part of the program?
Yes. Yeah. So my background's in theater too. Like I
Yeah.
began in theater before I moved into television and film and multimedia and transmedia storytelling, you name it. So
Yeah.
I remember those days. And I think that what's really unique about Texas Immersive is you have a wide variety of students from different majors. I think I have about 15 majors represented in the program right now.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and it's 50% graduate students and 50% undergraduate. So I don't even like say, oh, only upperclassmen, which a lot of colleges do, or just grad students. I'm like, dude, if you can hold your own and you can be in a room with all these people, then you're meant to be here,
Yeah.
because that's what the real world is like. It's not age discriminate on or even expertise. Can you hold your own? Can you like ask the good questions? So I have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and graduate students in the program. And from the majors, my faculty position is in the Stan Richards School of Advertising and PR. And so we started this as a new sequence in Texas, called Texas Immersive, for advertising and PR students, because the whole idea of the brand world was shifting.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
to traditional being just a art director or a copywriter is not how branding, how advertising works anymore. They're all moving towards immersive.
And you're at ground zero for that every March when South by pops up
Oh,
and does just I mean those students are lucky to have that just happening in their backyard, because something like, I mean, this is before, I think before the institute was around, South by Southwest World, and
oh yeah.
it might be a minute before we see budgets
Study
like that again, but there's so much of that happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, there was. And this past year at South by, there were a lot of new activations. And I think maybe because New Frontiers Lab closed down with Sundance, a
Yeah.
lot of the whole entire XR initiative that Brandon has been building up, like it blew up this year. And my students get to have a really great opportunity. They get to intern through it's spring break here. So they have that entire week to really dive into the world that they've been studying in the classroom. And, it's not just advertising students. I know we talked about that, but like I have theater and dance students mixed with creative technologists, computer scientists. I have a philosophy student. I have a medical student. Like it's the gamut of showing that immersive now is not just a brand activation or entertainment. Immersive is being integrated into every vertical. And this next generation realizes that, and they want to be the innovator in their field. So they're coming and applying to Texas Immersive.
How much is the formula here about the emerging tech and familiarizing folks with that, and how much of it is about the fundamentals of storytelling and the sort of the affordances of particularly spatialized design, because immersive at the end of the day means bodies in space, whether that's physical or digital.
Correct. Yeah. So everyone everyone immediately thinks Texas Immersive Institute is about technology. And then they get into the program and they realize, oh, wow, I can be a novice and have the time and effort to really explore and understand these technologies. So when the dean recruited me, even before I launched Texas Immersive Institute, the first thing I did with my research fund was to set up the Immersive Lab, because I felt like we needed to break down the socioeconomic barriers to access to this emerging technology. How can you expect someone to design and make something with these tools if you don't have access to demo and try out what already exists? So that was the key fundamental start of starting my lab. And my lab is the heart of Texas Immersive. Everyone hangs out there. They build community there. The students have started an immersive club at UT Austin. I've woken up many students on my couch and I'm washing the blanket because the semester is over. It's like, it is like, it reminds me of like those like back rooms at MIT where like people never left, which is fun because like it's like the creative space where like we're in a corner and people are like, what's going on there? It's where magic happens. It really is where magic happens.
I mean, for me,
But
that was the back of the theater back in high school.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
my teacher let me stay unsupervised between like the end of the school day and rehearsal, and so like I was the thing that haunted the theater. Still am.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I can't tell you how many snacks I buy on a weekly.
oh
Just
yeah, hopefully you
feed
get
them and they will totally stay.
yeah.
But back to your question about is it technology focused? I think that as designers in today and thinking about how R&D and development works, we rapid prototype quickly. You can literally jump into a template in Unreal or Unity and quickly make something if you wanted to from like an immersive technology perspective without having to take a long time to build. You're kind of
Right.
rapidly doing these sprints. And so I feel like they have to at least know the basics of these technologies. So I incorporate software skills developments into every class, audience developments, storytelling and the immersive capstone, but it's very personalized because I'm dealing with 15 different majors. So I have people who are already getting their degree in technology versus like advertising students who might know how to make a video, and
Right.
so it's like really varied. And so they all take a personal journey into the software skills they need to learn. So they get to choose if they're a beginner, intermediate, advanced and move in there. And they're never alone and they're learning from each other, which I think is how you build kind of like that technical support anyway.
With the folks who are coming through as they move to their final projects, or as they advance through, and what they're pitching, are they gravitating towards doing digital first work or live work, or is it a
Both.
big mix?
It's a big mix. Exactly. Like, so I just graduated the third cohort of students, and they developed the in between, which is about a 40-minute physical digital immersive experience in a gosh, we took over Data Labs in Austin, and it's a creative technology space. So it's like an office space for creative technologists, and they gave us like
Mhm.
their whole like space, so we could use the hallways, a little conference room, and the big like space where they hold bands and music.
Nice.
And they turned it into this space, which was called the in between. It's the 6 minutes between when your heart gives out and your brain stops functioning, and
Oh,
you go
yeah.
through this. And there was a management, it was actually a audio reactive touch designer connected with Stable Diffusion AI character that you would be able to come up and talk to, that was connected to a live actor behind the scenes with that character. We did try motion capture. The Wi-Fi in the room was bad. We had to do that. There's a whole story of like
Yeah, yeah.
switching it. But there was also like there was ones that were just audio driven spatial sound experiences. There was a VR one on Universe. Love was built completely in Figma. So it really varied in the technical skills, and the whole class of 25 students broke into different teams and built out the space collectively to make this holistic experience.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, a bunch of folks working on a theme and
Yep.
then delivering different experiences that way.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's a favorite format for me. I love that.
Yeah, I loved it.
Mm.
I loved it, and I think it gave them ownership on a particular area, but they had to also keep in mind the creative director's vision of the overall look and feel and story that was going on as people entered the room. So it was a holistic experience at the same time. And it was exploratory. And that one was very different than the last cohort, which was the first one to really do because of I started this in COVID. So the
Yeah.
first one, of course, was completely online.
Yeah.
But the second one, they chose to do this live physical digital called Roses of the Rubble, and they were exploring surveillance.
Mm.
So they developed this whole like alternative Austin, where Knox Corporation was really bringing Austinites down, and that you had to collect valence and bring the automaton to life. So it was like this crazy story world of like kind of like a collective time scavenger hunt experience with 5 actors interacting with you while you were doing these digital pieces.
Oh, that's dope. That's one of the things I like when particularly when storytellers and creative technologists get together, the working this space, the types of themes, the genres that are gravitated towards, they have that somewhere between ripped from the headlines slash deeply spiritual existential thoughts. It's like it's all death, surveillance culture, climate change, and gender identity, because you know you, you have questions about the way the tools work, like, and the systems of our world, and you're trying to there's something very Promethean about playing in the immersive space. You're trying to steal fire. You're trying to steal these tools from these giant corporations that might as well be gods. Anyway,
Yeah. totally, I mean, it's getting into the head of Gen Z and Gen Alpha that are coming up right behind on like what matters to them and where they are. I mean, I think the Knox Corporation was coming in when they were the COVID kids. They started the program during COVID online, and they were like, "Where is all my data? What is this looking like?" And the in between, they were the first group that like did not have to be online. We met in person, and it was a real like kind of like a butterfly coming out, like us
Mm,
coming out of our shells. And they were like, wow, life is so important. This cohort was so interested in giving each other grace and making sure that we were taking time to to take care of our mental health as we built and got, frustrations. I mean, production, you're in the shit, right? You're like
yeah.
figuring it out. And they were all like very cautious of like, let's over communicate and make sure that we're all watching and taking care of each other so we can excel and have a good experience,
Yeah.
which was really interesting.
There's a part of me that really hopes that trend, that instinct can be sustainable. And there's another part of me who like knows production hell, who's like, sometimes you just like, no, just strap the Makita on me. I'm going in. Like,
Oh, I
just,
think they experienced both. Trust me.
okay, good.
Yeah,
Sometimes you just got to hyper focus and, down a Jolt Cola and be done with it. So,
exactly,
um,
exactly. That's a conversation we had to have around like it's interesting trying to teach them the difference between effort and quality. So it's like, oh, I worked
mm,
so hard. Oh my God, this was, I was up all night and everything. And I'm like, but did you see the play test? Like it's not, it failed. Like it's not ready,
yeah.
so just because you're trying hard doesn't mean it's working.
Yeah, yeah. You could be putting your ladder on the wrong wall, Like
Yep.
there's always that. And well, and that's always the thing about effort, right? Is like you can be you get the tunnel vision, you put a lot of
Yeah.
effort into it, but you're going up the wrong wall, and someone goes, you put it on the wrong wall, and it's like, no, I can climb over the ceiling and get to the right wall. It's like you will fall. Like, why
Yeah.
don't we just take a breather, take a step back, like
Yeah.
use that stuff for the next time, right? Like you've
Yeah.
learned some lessons. What can transfer over? Um,
Exactly.
it's not teaching, like learning how to fail, right? I think particularly in our culture, like our culture lauds all the accidental successes and has no room for lauding the ability to fail and draw wisdom from failure, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's so
the closest we
important.
get is improv,
Yeah.
literally the closest we get.
Yep. Yeah. Well, they learned yes and from me for sure. And it's the ones that finished the program and are still haven't graduated from UT Austin. They started the Immersive Club, so they're like, "Yes, I'm going to do more, even though I'm finished with your classes." And I have clients who come in who want to do immersive projects. So outside of the courses, we have a whole entire lab working on different immersive experiences with other departments that come to us, or even external clients who come to us asking us to be experience designers and develop what the future could look like for them.
Oh, very cool. I'll have to drill in on that at some point and ask you how that works. Although that might be like offline. Just like,
Yeah.
wait, how's that work? Um, just out of all kinds of curiosity. Um, Couple of things that we've touched on that I just kind of want to loop back to. First, at the start, you referred to the group as hustlers, hackers, and designers, and I'm wondering, is hustler and hacker a continuum, or it is like in parallel and opposition? Like, is it an intersection? What's
I
up with
feel
that?
like you need to have all of those skills to be an explorer at Texas Immersive. It's
Nice.
not only one of the kind of I'm a big believer in the triangle. Like Star Wars, like how it should
Nice.
meant to be, right? Trilogies.
You've got it.
So I'm
You
always
got to have all. You got to multi-class. You can't just come in as a one type character type. It's like, no, the institute is only for multi-class characters. Like, like, sorry everybody. Um,
exactly, exactly. You got to have a little bit of all of that in order to succeed.
the other thing, when you were talking about like pushing things into Unreal or in kind of sketching in there, I'm particularly because of the way the workflows are happening in virtual production and between like digital and physical now, like, are you sort of feeling, are you seeing that there is kind of a common technical palette that's
Yeah.
developing in the space? Like, are we reaching a point where it's not quite as Wild West, and there's a little bit more, there's some go tos that are a little more reliable here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think because I've worked in it so long,
Yeah.
I gravitate and lean towards Unity.
Hmm.
Uh, maybe because that's where I first developed, right? First began building projects. But I also found that their Unity has better plugins in connection to like IoT sensors. So I've always been someone who's wanted to always converge physical and digital, and so those type of plugins are good, but it's a little bit more complicated because you need to know how to code, where Unreal has really like changed the dynamic. It reminds me so much of like where I began with video editing as a filmmaker. It's a very easier template to use and pick up. So I can see why in the College of Communication, Unreal Engine, and especially when it comes to virtual production and storytelling, it's one that's really applying, where Unity is for game developers. But those two platforms, they both have pros and cons. And I
Right.
don't sell one over the other. I think that it really is, what affordances do you need, that which platform I would choose. And I would say those two game engines are like standard
Yeah.
now. Now I would also throw in Niantic, because I think out of all the different types of extended reality I've worked in, I was more interested in augmented reality while everyone else was getting funded by virtual reality. I didn't want to leave my world, right?
Mhm.
I really felt like there was long term going to be a better play in blending digital and physical rather than in removing my physical environment. Maybe it's the kind of the dystopian of Ready Player One that always inspired me. I'm like, no, I like my world. Maybe we want to be here just a little bit longer. And you can see that augmented reality is already taking off with Niantic. I'm not talking just about like, Ingress or Pokemon Go, or even Harry Potter. There's a lot of people now with their VPS and with their sky effects, with occlusion, which when I was doing one in 2016, if I had occlusion, my public park augmented reality experience would have been totally different for families than
Yeah.
it is now, So, and they're mapping the world, and they say AR is for everyone, which is really kind of a belief that I think is right.
There were a lot of demos at South by of stuff that's being built on Lightship, which
Yeah,
is, I
like
think, how they brand their platform.
yeah, that's the
I didn't get,
VPS, the occlusion, all of that
yeah,
is
I
like.
didn't get a chance to see those. I mean, like, do you feel that's like taken a real step forward in terms of its maturation?
Like leaps and bounds it has taken a step forward, because I remember building AR in Vuforia. I mean,
Mm,
it has changed immensely what you can do with augmented reality. And I think they're prime because where they had the Lightship SDK when they first released it, they're now actually incorporating it into being able to be just plugins within Unity. I'm sure Unreal down the line, but it's already
yeah,
plugins within Unity, which makes it so much easier for these two game engines to really kind of push the envelope towards mixed reality. We're at the
yeah,
early stages of mixed reality, but like I remember Winklebeans when I was like, I want to make my little wooden monsters, actually interact with digital assets, with augmented reality. And it was before glasses. So, you're like
yeah.
holding a toy and holding a mobile phone and kind of clunky, but glasses are 6 months to a year out, and I've already been playing with like Nreal Air and Snap spectacles. It's
Well, and
just
like,
slow, a little
I
slow.
was just interviewing Lucas Martel
Oh yeah,
of Mighty Coconut, right?
Honey
And
coconut
yeah,
in my neck
and
of the woods here in Austin.
right, and he was telling me about, and I had not caught this, like, I didn't realize that they've got, and people, if this goes out before people hear this in the interview, they've got up and running, and have always had it up and running, but are bringing it to everyone, crossplay for a mobile version of Walkabout and VR so that people on their phones or on an iPad can like play with people who are in headset in the same physical space, partly so people can see what people are doing, but also to like interact. And that right there, particularly because people already love Walkabout. Like for so much of this stuff for so long, it's been a tech demo. Isn't this fascinating? Here's this thing. Look at what you can do. And it's fun for like a couple of minutes, but then you get to the end of it and no one picks it back up. Walkabout, because it already has folks who are really into doing it, that playing with each other. It's proven fun, and they're porting it all over. So like every course, and that just blows my mind. Like that feels like where we're at the edge of something.
So think about Lucas is a visionary. I remember meeting Mighty Coconut even before Walkabout Mini Golf when they were working with Merge and did the 52 story with the cube. Do you remember that one?
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was, and you like you had the merge cube, and you turned the cube, and how you turned it shifted the story. That's Lucas's work. Like,
okay,
he's always been thinking physical, digital, and like, how can we converge these two together? And I in audience class, in order to get students comfortable in technology, I give them a quest. So I, for the past 3 years, early days, got 30 quests, and I made it my textbook in my first class in audience. And we demo every week, and I bring in a guest speaker. So Mighty Coconut comes in, and we do to talk about multiplayer and casual gaming, like what creates an audience. How do you get people to casually connect in these environments? You should also look at Resolution Games, #1 VR game company. They did Acron, but have you seen Acron?
I haven't played it, but I've seen. Yeah.
Acron is cross-platformable. It is so much fun. Only one person has to be in a headset, and the rest are on their mobile device. And the rest are the squirrels trying to attack or grab the acorns from the tree. And that everything goes back to audience, right? If you understand audience, you know how to design in these environments. In a home, not everyone's going to have a VR headset, maybe one, maybe two. So being able to be cross-platformable, hence why these game engines will never go away, because you literally build it once, spread it out to all the different platforms, is so smart way in order to like think about where your audience is. Don't force them into a hardware that maybe they're not ready to adopt, but be able to put that experience into the different platforms so that you can start building that audience and getting them excited about story, because that's what's going to connect them and have something to talk about.
Story, character, experience, like what is they're doing, who they're doing it with, and where they're doing it, right? It really just comes back to that, the absolute fundamentals of it, right?
That's
which is just
immersive.
Which is awesome. Erin, thank you so much for this conversation today. This is really great, and maybe next time we get together, you pull some grad students in, and we can talk about some of the stuff that they're up to and doing. And I want to hear about the next cohort's grand design. So
I just reviewed applications. I had 50 applications, and I'm narrowing it down to 24. So it's getting more competitive.
That's great to hear. That's really, really good to hear. So.
Really good to hear. So definitely would love that, Noah.
Thanks, Erin.
Thanks, Noah.
Once again, I want to thank Erin Reilly for being our guest on the show this week. And I'm excited because I'll get to talk to Erin in person in just about a week here. Now, while I'm talking with Erin, if you're not at the summit, don't worry, there's still an episode of the podcast. We have Lucas Martel, creator of Walkabout Mini Golf, the hit game from Mighty Coconut, is going to be on the show to talk about some what will be very recent announcements from the company popping up just this coming week. I gotta remember not to say certain things right now. So. Embargo life, it's just a thing sometimes. So that's coming up. And then there may or may not be an episode the following week. Now, if I have my druthers, I get to take the whole week off because I'm excited right now for Summit because we're getting really close, but I'm going to be so tired afterwards. And I just want to go hang out at Descanso Gardens, drink margaritas during the day because you can do that there. Nothing like a botanical garden and a marg. So that's my future. Except that Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference is happening immediately after the summit, and everyone's pretty sure they're going to announce the headset on that Monday. So that's what I'm going to be doing that Monday, and then probably trying to do like some kind of rapid response article and podcast. So, thanks, Tim Cook. At least I get to go see Spider-Verse that night. I've already got my ticket. I also scheduled the summit on the weekend Spider-Verse came out. But, hey, that's my problem, not yours. So, I already did a whole version of this before. And then I listened back to a little of it, and like the microphone was just being totally off. And then I just sort of like grabbed the mic and shook it, and now it's sounding just fine. But that also means I've sort of said everything I was going to say to you into the microphone already, and I kind of just don't want to repeat myself. So the long and the short of it is, we have been working on the next stage since 2019. The pandemic stopped it from happening. And then we were all ready to do it again in 2022, and the pandemics came back and had its revenge. And now we're officially closer than we've ever been to making it happen. And that part of me feels like, I'm just finally getting to that part of my life that I was supposed to be in like a few years ago. And there's just so much. In so many ways, I'm a very different person from the person who set out in 2019 to do it. Things have changed. This changed for so many of us, but a lot has changed. And what's been wonderful is how much this work has given me a focus, giving me something to fight for, giving me something not just to believe in, but to help try bring about. And now that we get to get everyone together and start having the conversation we want to have in person, which is about how do we change the discussion around the value of this work? How do we alter the way the rest of the world looks at immersive, which has been the plan all along. This conversation, the town hall we're having on the value of immersive. There's so much we have wanted to do, and the next stage has always been meant to be the kickoff for that. And where it won't necessarily be a simple like, and then we start and then boom, all this other stuff happens. I've just felt, sort of like tied up in this for so long. Anyway, I'm no longer making sense to myself even, except to say this has been a long time coming, and I'm really excited for the many of you that I'm going to get to see. And this is indeed the beginning of the next phase. And then what comes next? A little bit of more of the same, but also so many plans that we want to start building on and working on. But a lot of it comes down to showing that, we can bring the community together in this way and get everyone under one roof and pick up sort of where we left off before the world upended itself. So here we go. All right, let's do the thing we do every week. The associate producer for No Proscenium is Parker Sella, who I get to meet in person for the first time next week. Music for No Proscenium is by Chris Porter of the Speakeasy Society and Solar the Podcast. Special thanks to Siobhan O'Loughlin for voicing our intro. I'll see Siobhan there as well. And this podcast, it's my fault. I'm Noah Nelson, and until next time, I'll see you at the show. Once again, I want to thank Erin Reilly for being our guest on the show this week. Check the show notes to learn more about the Texas Immersive Institute. All right. And indeed, yes, next week on the show, Lucas Martel, creator of Walkabout Mini Golf and founder of Mighty Coconut, is going to be here to talk about the latest from about our favorite VR game. And it's pretty fun. They've got some fun stuff coming up. If you follow the news, you'll have heard about it by then. But like, we've been holding on to this one for just a hot minute. So that's going to come up. So yes, indeed, there is a podcast next week. Even though when that drops, I'll be at Summit. You'll still get the podcast. How? It's the miracle of computer technology. That's how. Also, because I want to try and take the next week off. Except if Apple announces that headset. Literally the day after Summit. Oh man, these dates of ours, geez. Then won't be taking that week off. Indeed, we'll jump on and maybe try and find some friends to talk about it with. I've got plenty of people who will be very interested to talk about that. So that's some stuff to look forward to. And indeed, I think we'll just. We were talking about this week. Parker and I and Patrick, we had our meeting, and if that happens, we won't actually take a bye week on the podcast. We'll just push right through until we've gotten to episode 400, and then we're going to take a break. Not a long one, just a week. I just need a breather. Although some other stuff may happen that may cause me to take a week off, but we'll see. That's the plan right now. Is if Apple drops a headset, we do a show right after Summit, and if they don't, we don't. We might do the show early, like a quick turnaround, so that I can take some time off. I am getting energized again. I was very, very tired, and now as we kind of wrap things up and get this thing out the door, we've only been working on it for 4 years. So, and it's only had to, modify and change and everything. And there's all those little things at the last minute, but we're excited to get everybody together. And I'm excited to have this one finally launched and done. And I'm already thinking about what the next one's going to be and where and when and how and what we'll be doing even different from this time. Because always in motion is the future. And, I get bored easily. This podcast is literally the longest thing I've ever done in my life, as we get close to 400 episodes. And yeah, like, I don't know, like if a giant chunk of money falls out of the sky, maybe there won't be more than 400 episodes. Maybe we'll be like, oh, hey, guess what? Like, I won the lotto. We're going to put this to bed for a while. No, don't worry. I'll just hire someone else to do it, is what it is. If I become stupidly rich out of overnight, I'll just be like, oh, I'm going to hire someone else to do this show. I'll just come in when I want to. It'll be great. Actually, I could hire engineers. Anyway, so the point is, give me your lotto numbers. I'm a little punchy because of just how many logistical things are going on. Probably not as punchy as poor Eric is getting right now, because he's doing a lot of the line producing at the moment, which is something I've done in the past. And I mean, Eric does it all the time, like way more than I do, which is why he's doing it this time out. But like we were chatting yesterday, and he was telling me what's up, and I was just like, oh my God. You're making things like some things are just really easy, and other things you're just like, oh, why is this being difficult right now? The good news is that at the end of the day, when it comes to this iteration of the Summit, it's really, people talking to people. It's not that complicated. But then you'd be surprised at how complicated it is when it's like, well, we got to make sure everyone gets fed, and like, where can we get food trucks? And so we got schemes around like parking shenanigans. Like it takes a lot to pull off, the simplest of stuff sometimes, which always, makes me, so much more appreciative of when creators put it all on the line to make something and pull off something meaningful. It also, conversely, when I go see something and maybe things haven't been thought through all that much, it makes me more upset because I know how much effort goes in. So much effort goes into making anything. I've had this like discussion and even in some ways an argument with folks in the past who are like, oh, well, how can you like even criticize? How can you like say a bad thing? Like, you know how much work goes into it. I'm like, no, be quite the opposite. All that effort's being spent on something just to make it happen. But why? Right? So that's some kind of like, where my head's at right now as we go into Summit is trying to make sure that, that it is not just an end in and of itself, that it is a means to yet another end. And for us, a lot of that just centers around the idea of, our town hall this year is going to be about the value of immersive, this conversation that we've been having now for years, and that we've been wanting to do since 2020 with the town hall, with the community, is basically coming down to the idea of how do we change the discussion around how this work is valued? How do we get people who haven't experienced it for themselves to understand? How do we change the conversation? Because so often, immersive is like, well, it's just a buzzword. Well, it's a buzzword because there's real value in there. And people want to take what's valuable and spend that value without investing any of their own spirit into it. If you've got something good, people are going to want to claim it and take it and run with it, right? This is just what happens. So, and we've seen a lot lately, just the true worth of the work, of the effort, of the specialness, not translating wider. I'm talking about Star Cruiser here, right? Like, obviously that's what I'm talking about. And just what can we do? And I'm not hopeless here. I don't believe that there's nothing we can do, right? It's not like, well, you have to eat it for, you have to see for yourself. Humans have imagination, right? There are ways, and there are things we already know. We see this effect. We watch people discover this. There are ways to translate this value to not just the initiated. There's ways to bring more people in. There's ways to connect people with immersive and experiential. And so we're kind of right from the start on Summit this year, going to get everyone's brains on that and light that up and then carry through the whole weekend. Just diving into the details and getting into the nooks and crannies. And, we haven't talked a lot about, making the talks available afterwards or any of what we're going to be doing. And that in large part because I'm being a little bit superstitious. And I just want to make sure we capture everything that we can and that we bring that as best we can. And then we'll see what we've got and what's going to translate well into video and other formats. So look to maybe July when we're going to be able to really start talking about how that works and what that is about. And we're experimenting with formats. We're doing a different version of the affinity dinners we did in Denver, and we've already got an eye towards doing more stuff of that nature, both here in LA and elsewhere in the long run. The next stage and the event and what it was called before back in 2020, when we called it Here for a hot second, this was always meant to sort of be our coming out party as the Immersive Experience Institute, as not just this one website or this one event or the other website, because we do have two websites, or the podcast, but as a group of people, as an entity that is dedicated to advancing this field in a real way. And I think a lot of we did work in the past where we were also trying to form a group we were calling Leia. That was an industry group. We were doing that as a 501c6. And, the pandemic messed that up. And we ultimately had to make a choice in terms of where we were going to focus our efforts. And so right now we're focusing on the 501c3. We're focusing on the Institute. We're focusing on making an organization that can help artists, that can help this field as best we can in as many ways as we can. And the kind of lobbying efforts which is why we built Leia up way back when. We can't do as much in a 501c3, for tax purposes, but it's not like we can't do. Well, it's not like we're not individual people and we can't talk, as people and not as the organization. So there are alternatives to making a 501c6. So just, so many of the ideas that have been on the table over the past few years, we're just trying to roll them out in a way now that makes sense. And a lot of that starts here with the next stage. And as for what's next, like immediately coming, well, keep your eyes on the near horizon. We know that some of our friends are up to stuff. Don't be surprised if there's something up in Denver later this year. And as for where the next summit's going to be, let me get through this one first. So before we start worrying about the next one, even though I'm already starting to worry about the next one. So yes, far from being a one and done, this is the start of something new. And it wouldn't be possible without all of you. Really wouldn't. I'm excited about where we get to go to next, and hopeful on a few other fronts too. So, all right, enough of me. Let's do the end of the show. The associate producer of this podcast is Parker Sella, who I get to meet in person for the first time next week, because Parker's coming to work on the setup. Special thanks to Siobhan O'Loughlin for voicing our intro. I'll see Siobhan next week as well. Music for No Proscenium is by Chris Porter of the Speakeasy Society and Solar of the Podcast. I might see Chris. Speakeasy Society's got themselves a badge. I think Chris might pop in at some point. And I see myself every day. So I'm Noah Nelson. I host this show and do the other things. Until next time, I'll see you at the show.